Human beings have free will. Of course they do. We make choices and then we reflect on those choices in the hope that we can, hopefully, make better choices. From free will comes responsibility, excuses, reasons and stories. That's the commonly held theory anyway. But let me ask you a question or three about that. Has there ever been a time in your life where you know you could have done better but didn't? Can you do better right now, today, with a difficult situation or problem? Why don't you then? Welcome, if you please, to the chocolate teapot world in which you do not have free will. This is Sonderlust with Steve M. Nash, offering an uncommon perspective on the human being experience. An invitation for you and I to blame and shame less and to listen more, and to see what comes from doing that. Episode 10, Free Will. The Can't Be True Can It one about always doing your best. Quote, I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. Angelou. Forgive me if this podcast episode gets a bit rambly. It was the best I could do at the time. It really was. You are always doing your best. Yes, you are always doing the best you can. And so am I. Can you see that? Do you believe it to be true? Does that surprise you? Or is this merely an apologist's charter for the chaos and carnage of the world? No, I didn't say you're always doing what's best. I didn't say you don't make mistakes. I didn't say you can abdicate responsibility for your life or the actions you take. This is not a get-out-of-jail-free card that Monopoly players so love. It's just a liberating, or not, truth. It's just not possible for you to not be doing what you know best to do in this moment. This goes for parents who lose it with their children. This goes for cheating partners. This goes for so-called drama queens and perpetual victims. This goes for absolutely anything a human being can do. Think of the most heinous human act: rape, torture, murder. Or how about slavery? How about child abuse, acts of genocide, acts of terrorism? How about believing in conspiracy theories? Or how about not believing in them? Or rampant corporate greed on a global scale? All coming from a place of doing what we know best to do in any given moment. Of course, you probably would argue they should know better. You might even believe that they do know better. They do. And I would say to you simply, when they know better, they do better. Doing your best. Let's look at you. Let's keep this real. Let's stop pointing the finger outwards, as is the easy tendency, and let's point it inwards instead. Let's look at you. You ain't perfect after all. Shock emoji face. Let's look at you. Let's remember a time when your behaviour was less than you'd expect of yourself. Let's remember, briefly of course, a time you feel ashamed of. And let's ask this rather pointed question. Why did you do it? Why did you behave so shamefully, so out of character? Have a think. Pause for a moment. I'll wait. I'll help you out here, because I know why you did it, and why you might do it again. You did it because you were angry, or they deserved it, or you didn't know you were doing it, or you lost yourself for a mad moment, or even because you didn't think anyone would find out. Or you simply did it because, consciously or otherwise, it made sense for you to do it at that time. You could justify doing it. It made sense to you. It might not make sense to you later. It might go quite contrary to your thoughts of who you think you are. But it made sense to you in that moment. So I'm not talking about what you thought about it afterwards. The justifications, the self-recriminations, the I'll never do it again protestations. Even though this act of denial is also you doing your best at the time. I'm talking about the thoughts in your head in that moment that made most sense to you. Doing your best, the human robot. The thing is, you are a thinking machine par excellence, and you're quite literally programmed, computer-like almost, to make the best of what you think. Thought goes in, thought is evaluated in the moment, Action comes out. Repeat forever. Can you see why being yourself is rather more devil is in the detail than at first appears? Let's examine this doing your best premise I'm sharing here, this conceit. Question. Why would you ever not do your best? Provocation? You were in a bad mood? A temporary madness? Well, in those moments your best became less, but it was still your best in the moment. Okay, so let's say you find yourself in a dilemma. There are 3 choices you can see, one of which is a best choice, one of which is a worst choice, and one of which is a compromised choice. You knew the best course of action to take, a loving action, but chose differently anyway, a fearful action. You chose the compromised choice. Ha! I didn't do my best, you're now thinking. Am I right? Are you thinking that? Fact is, though, you did do your best, again, in the moment in question. In that moment, the best choice wasn't an option, and neither was the worst choice. The only choice for you was compromise. This was the best choice. Of course, a different moment, and you might make a different, better or worse choice. You might even see that there's 5 choices to choose from rather than just 3. This isn't about you now. This is about you in that moment, doing what's best in that same moment. This is not about excuses, as I've already said. It's not about painting you out as some thoughtless act monster, because you are also a wonderful, wise and loving human being by default. It's just that there is a liberation in seeing this for yourself, that you're doing your best, and you can't do anything other than that. There's a liberation, it takes the pressure off, and you stop thinking quite so much. You may even learn to do better, to trust yourself more, to listen inwards. Or not. This is the chocolate teapot episode after all. It might not make a positive difference to you at all, quite the reverse. Still, either way, you're always doing your best. You might not like what your best looks like sometimes, granted. What it says about you, what it means, it's still just you doing your best. You might want to pretend otherwise, that this is not you doing your best, that you can do better. Of course you can do better. Of course you do better. You just didn't in that moment. As for pretending, that's okay too. It's just doing what makes sense until it stops making sense, until pretending to be someone you're not all the time just seems daft to you. You're always doing your best. Even thinking that you are your thoughts, you are defined by what's happened to you, or you are who you say you are. Even believing you are someone you are not. Even all that is you doing your best. Whichever way you turn, however way it goes, whatever way it looks, you're always doing your best. Even believing that this is nonsense, here what I'm sharing is you doing your best. And my, perhaps feeble attempts at showing you it's true are me doing my best. You're always doing your best, and so am I, which means you couldn't have done any differently at the time. Doing your best. What about free will? Let's talk about free will for a moment. What is free will? I think of free will as individuality. So, that free will exists for sure. I think of free will as you being different to me, of you being able to take different actions to me, to think and look and behave differently to me. But you are you, and you can't behave any differently than you know how to. You are free to behave as your character. You are free to know better and do better too. And you do. Improvements happen, developments happen, and success and failure happens too. You just don't choose when any of this happens, when you know better. And you certainly don't choose what you think. You are free will, so to speak, but you don't have it and you can't use it. Maybe you don't find this truth useful. Maybe you don't think it's even true. Maybe you'll choose to forget it as quickly as you forget someone's name at a party. Or maybe you'll let some part of this simmer inside of you. You'll let the alchemical juices do their thing. How you choose to use this information then, if you'll dare to explore the possibility of its truth, is up to you. Kind of. You don't really have any choice in the matter. You'll do what you do with it until you learn to do something different. And how do you learn to do something different? How does your character change? You see something new, something new starts to make sense to you, you know better, you just do. Maybe that happens because you're listening to this. Maybe it happens because of all the actions you're taking. Or maybe because you finally notice that your friend doesn't get bothered about the things that bother you. Your journey of knowing better is ongoing, never-ending, programmed. But wherever you find yourself on that journey, whatever you do, you'll always, always be doing your best. Because that's what you do. Your best as you. The Sonderlust Challenge. Before I leave you, here's a little something for you to ponder on during your week. Predict a thought you will have at some point today. Predict an action you will take based on that thought. Predict a choice you will make. Next, at the end of today, look at a thought, action, choice that you did not anticipate that genuinely surprised you. Thank you. That's the 10th and final episode for now. More coming soon, I hope. You have been listening to Sonderlust with Steve M. Nash, all the way to the end. Thank you. For more about this podcast and to join the Sonderlust mailing list, please visit stevemnash.com/podcast.